Welcome to episode 91.
Wheel of the Year.
Lammas.
And First Harvest.
Join us as we discuss the Wheel of the Year and some of the cultural celebrations of Lammas, also known as the First Harvest.
And then we dive in and talk about our own personal celebrations, how we honor the first harvest here, where we're more removed from the Celtic traditions. But then we also circle back around and talk about how it's connected to the god Lu, and specifically to the city of Lugo in Spain.
Stay tuned. Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
Ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
Races,
and backgrounds.
with a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true. Our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Welcome to episode 90. I'm giddy. Episode 91.
Wheel of the Year.
Lammas.
First Harvest.
Yay! Oh, wow. I'm so excited about this episode. Well, first of all, I was excited about 91. That is a number for some reason that's just like,
Yeah.
we've been doing this a while now.
We're like professional.
I know. We're
No, not really.
Well, no. Well, you know, I'll put it this way. We're professional for what we're doing, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's like bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
Except it's been so long since we've recorded an episode, I wasn't quite sure what to do, but we can talk a little bit more about that.
But maybe today we're going to talk about, we're going to continue our Wheel of the Year series. We're going to talk about Lammas, also known as First Harvest or by some other names. We'll talk about some cultural celebrations and then our own unique celebrations and how it shows up for us. But before we do that, maybe we could check in.
Yes, we can. And I suspect both of our check-ins are going to be the same.
Okay.
It's Camino.
That's right.
Post-Camino.
Post-Camino.
Yes. Oh, shall I start?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't I start? So, yay. As we're recording this, we are 2 weeks from ending our Camino, just about.
Yeah.
And I'm still processing. I was talking to someone the woman who I'd mentioned before, who has done the Camino a couple of times, and I told her, I said, I can tell you a few things like miles and days and stuff, but I can't really tell you what it meant to me just yet. And she said, it's going to take you forever, and you're going to keep revisiting it. So, which is nice to hear from someone who's done this before. So that's where I am mentally, maybe emotionally, and perhaps spiritually, but physically, I can tell you a whole shitload.
I am so curious to hear, mostly because I want to tell you and see if it's normal.
Okay. First of all, my hands and feet are so chewed up. Now, first, I mean like muscularly in my feet, but like the skin of my hands and feet. And I think that's from, we'll talk about this. Actually, people will have heard our Camino episode by this point, and talking about the day that it was really raining. It was raining sideways and, really. And so I had blood blisters on my hands. I went to I think I mentioned I was going to a bat mitzvah the day after we got back into the country. And I was like trying not to let people shake my hands because they were so rough and just creepy feeling. Just, it felt like I had a disease, really, So is that, and then there's my joints. Shall I tell you a little bit about my joints?
I want to hear about your joints.
So as I've mentioned a couple of times, we had the Camino. I think only 3% of the people who walk the Camino do the Camino Primitivo, and now we know why. Because there's nothing but one fucking mountain after another. And which is fine. I mean, it's fine, right? It
is a mountain.
It's a mountain.
It's mountains.
They're mountains, and they're good mountains. They're themselves. They are essentially themselves, and they do that really, really well.
Yes.
And climbing the mountain, I'm confronted with my lack of conditioning. Just like cardio, breathing and stuff, I have to stop. And that's fine. And if I do it really slow, sometimes I don't even have to stop. But I'm going, when I say slow, like there's a lot of slugs all over the place in Spain. They're like zooming past, looking at me like, oh, honey, but it's coming down the hill that it's, other people are like, oh, yay, we're going downhill, like, da-da-da-da-da-da. And because of the ground is very, very uncertain, a lot of scree, a lot of, uncertain footing, and these are steep descents. These are not gradual in many cases. They're steep. And I have problematic knees. I'll put it that way. I have sensitive knees. And so I'm literally creeping like 1/2 of a foot at a time, and slowly putting my heel down and stuff, so to make sure it's not going to slide out from under me. So it takes me forever. And it's also putting pressure on my legs and ankles. So I got back to the States. And I spent a week in New York City, and you came home. I was there, I think after a second day, I went on Amazon and ordered freeze sleeves for my ankles. And, because that's how bad they were. So, that's how much they hurt, and they were swollen, etc. So they're getting better. It's now, we're almost 2 weeks. It's getting better, and I'm feeling better. And but my body is still like, what the hell? Like I at one point I was thinking of your friend. I thought I was losing a toenail, but I didn't. But it's like things like that. And you can't kind of complain to people because they're looking at you like, didn't you want to? Didn't you volunteer to do? Like, what are you complaining? Not what are you complaining about, but thank you for sharing. And you were an idiot for doing that.
Right,
so,
right.
What did you expect? It's kind of what I'm picturing would be the expressions on their faces. But anyway. So I'm getting better. I'm doing fine. I'm resting, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm still recuperating. What about you?
I am still recuperating.
Yeah.
And I was really curious to hear if you were. But yeah. So I got back, and I'd been traveling. I don't remember. I think I at one point in time I calculated the hours. I had been awake for over 36 hours because of the way the time zones were whenever we got back. And I was just a mess. I was so emotional. I was just like crying at everything. And my partner picked me up it was a little past midnight at the airport, but it was 7 o'clock in Spain, 7 a.m. in Spain. Oh. So like we had traveled a complete day plus more time.
Right.
But I was just very tired, and very emotional, and I dreamt of the Camino for a few days following, which I did not dream of the Camino while at the Camino. At the Camino, all I had was stress dreams.
Because
showing up to my classroom and I don't have a lesson plan. I don't know what I'm teaching.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
I just had dreams about stress.
Okay,
when I got home from the Camino, then I started dreaming about walking on the Camino
and walking,
and that's all the dreams were, was just walking. Like nothing happened. It's just me walking.
Well, because that was kind of your day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just me walking by myself.
And
nothing happening. Just I'm walking.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's some serious processing.
Yeah. That's what I thought. So I had a couple of those, and then physically, I was and am still sore. So it's getting less and less, but like I'm really sore in my feet. I am still sore. My arches are still sore. My knees are still sore. So, yeah.
What's so funny about all of this is that I think I felt all of this stuff at the time, but I was in such acute pain.
Yes.
That the incremental growth of pain you can't call it chronic because it's it was only a month, but that kind of slow build that would take a slow same amount of time to decrease. I never felt that at all during the walk. I just felt my knee hurt, this and that, and now I'm feeling all of the residual stuff that I guess we were feeling then too, but it was just so layered with other stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I did feel under the weather for a few days when I got back. but that makes sense to me because I was physically and also I believe spiritually and mentally exhausted. Then you put me in an airport and in like a metal capsule through the sky for
hours,
for
on
12
end.
hours or whatever, 9 hours, with other people breathing. So it makes sense, but it wasn't too bad. But.
Yeah. But were you able to, when you got back, to just kind of slow down and just be sick? What? What?
I mean, sure. I think I went and did handstands the first day I was back.
Oh, okay.
And I've been dancing.
Well, which is you have said that can be kind of therapeutic for you.
Yeah, but
okay.
but I'm also on summer break, so I can sleep as much as I need.
Okay.
I'm not working right now.
Okay.
It's but I definitely unless my body is hurting or tells me differently, I want to do I want to move because I think that's good for me. So I did handstands, I did acro. I got back Friday night. At midnight, I did acro Saturday at noon.
Damn.
Now, it wasn't my acroiest acro that I've ever acroed, but I thought,
but you were acroing.
I went and
were acro.
As much as my body said was okay, I did, because I think it's good to move and stuff. Now I slept really well, and then I went home and slept more.
Good.
But
good.
But I wanted to. I didn't just sit on the couch for a week, which is fine if that's what other people feel called to do. But for me, I wanted to move.
Yeah. Okay. So. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Excellent.
Here we go.
I know. So, like I said, I came back. I had the bar mitzvah on Saturday. So Saturday was shot, and my friend was coming in. And I remember talking to her on the phone, and I said, I'm not sure exactly what time you're going to get in, but I'm going to do a nice long walk in the morning, walk up to Central Park, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to get up early because it's super hot, and I wasn't used to the heat, having been super cold in Spain. And then, so I'm not sure when I'll get back to the room, but I'm pretty sure I'll be there before you get into town. And she said, oh, okay. And then the next morning, as I was waking up, I was thinking, wait a minute, this is the first morning in a month that I don't actually have to get up. Why am I getting up? Just so I can walk.
Yeah.
I can do some more walking. And so I said, screw this. And I went back to sleep. I rolled over and went back to sleep.
Yay! Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. But I mean, I was in a different place, so I didn't have a routine. And we had built a routine, just basically.
We were like, we had a routine, and it was solid, and it worked.
Yeah, it pretty much worked. Yeah. So, but coming out and not having one, I think I was trying to construct one that was going to look a little bit like the Camino, which wouldn't make sense in New York City.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah.
But we both survived, and our bodies are still recuperating.
Yeah.
But, we'll get there. We'll get there. There is just like something about my arch or something when I turn my foot a certain way. It's like, where did that come from? So I'm still discovering things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But can I ask you?
Yeah.
We've discussed whether or not we're ever going to do this again, and I think we're kind of on the same page with that.
But oh my God.
But how do you feel on this side of the Camino? How do you feel about having done the Camino? I know this is not a part of our check-in, but and we may cut this. But
I am so proud of what we did. I am so proud that I had my goal and I stuck with it. It was so hard. It was so hard.
And I'm going to say it out here for everyone to hear. I didn't do all the miles. There were taxis in my Camino. I'm just going to say, but yeah. I mean, you it's not even a check. It's really, it's not even a star. I mean, it's a Compostela.
It's a stamp, actually.
It's a stamp, and it's a beautiful certificate in Latin.
Yeah.
That kind of sums it up for the world. But in my head, I have this whole other certificate marker, congratulatory kind of feeling about having done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel a real sense of agency and power. And I also feel a really deep spiritual connection to it. And I think it was so overwhelming that I need some time to let things settle, because I think it feels like a snow globe. It was so intense.
Oh, okay.
You know, so it's just like shaken up, and I'm waiting, and every once in a while I catch a little glimpse, but I think it was too intense. I have to wait. I need to wait for it to settle.
Oh, sure.
For everything else to settle so that I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you?
No, it's yes. It was amazing that I think for me, the biggest thing is you tell yourself, I could never do that. I could never do that. Yeah, you can. Mm-hmm. Or yes, I can. Mm-hmm. And so that was a big thing for me, is that how am I going to walk, 15 miles or 12 miles, whatever. And you just put one foot in front of the other and you just keep going, know? And so, I think that was a big thing for me, was that, it may take me twice as long as everybody else, but it's not, I can do it, so that was a big thing. And then, I have never spent that much time out in nature alone. And so that's the part that I'm still, all that green is just, I'm still kind of processing that. And so, but I think the biggest thing for me is that, wow, I can do a lot more than I think I can do. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my big shiny star. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I know we need to move, we're going to move on, but one thing I do want to say is that people keep asking me how big our tour group was that we were with.
And you just said, no, just two of us.
There was no tour group. Well, who was your guide?
Actually, you were. you did all of the organizing.
Like, we were our own guide.
Yeah.
Like,
we had an app.
I had an app, and there were arrows.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think, I think a lot of people have a different idea of what we did than what we did.
It's like, I spent most of the day by myself walking in nature, just by myself.
Walking.
Mm-hmm. And maybe being passed by another person every once in a while.
Well, I was being passed by everyone, like, numerous times, because they'd stop and get a coffee or whatever, and then pass me again. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on, shall we?
Yeah.
Because we could talk about the... Yeah. In fact, we probably will be talking about the Camino a lot. But anyway, but we're going to talk a little bit about Lammas. Mm-hmm. So, just so, would you like to kind of position this for us on the Wheel of the Year?
So this is a part of our Wheel of the Year series. Mm-hmm. So if you, listener, are curious about the concept of the Wheel of the Year, we have more on this if you look back in our archived episodes. But if we think about the year, instead of a line, let's turn that into a circle. So... it might be January, February, March, November, December, January, February, like a circle that it runs into itself. And then instead of like our months, we would put the seasons on there. And so you could really position the year however you want, but we'll just say like summer solstice and winter solstice are on opposing sides of the circle. And then spring equinox and fall equinox are on other opposing sides of that circle. Mm-hmm. And so then if you connected those two and then the other two, you would get like the quarters.
Yes, those are the quarters. Mm-hmm.
Then if you then take that plus sign, the quarters and then you shift it a little bit over, and then you have an X on top of the plus sign, then you have the cross quarters. And that divides the year up into 8. And the concept being that we move through the Wheel of the Year, we move through the seasons, but it's cyclical, and that we experience them over and in different ways, but we experience them over and over and over again in a cyclical fashion instead of a linear fashion.
Yeah. So speaking of the cross quarters, those are the festivals that are fit in between the solar solar feasts, and that would be, we've talked already about Samhain a number of times. Excuse me. And then Beltane, we've talked about Beltane.
And they're across from each other.
They're across from each other. And then we have Imbolc, which we haven't discussed, but will be next year. And then Lammas, which we're talking about today. Or the first. I'm not as so personal preference in there. Lammas is a Christian kind of term, and so I'm not really jiving with it. I like to think of it as the first harvest. So
I do too. First harvest is is where I'm at. And if we called it First Harvest on this episode, most people wouldn't know what that meant.
Exactly.
So that's
Lammas,
why but just so everyone knows, I never call it that. Yeah.
So yeah. So and this year it's, well, I think every year it's either August 1st or August 2nd.
Yeah.
This year it's Thursday, August 1st. So moving into how people tend to look at this, again, so much of our cultural celebrations kind of fall from a Western European, or at least European, northern hemisphere, kind of envisioning of the year, right? So I just want to kind of, and a lot of the terms we inherit comes from that area. So the first harvest is usually if, as we learned walking in Spain, the actual real first harvest is in the spring, is like the early summer is hay, but that's not for people. That's for animals,
Yeah.
So the first harvest of something that is grown during the year that is brought in for the nourishment of people would be grains. And the most common being wheat, but there's a number of different ones that are going in.
Yeah, and grain was super important. It was like the staple food. It was like the underlying way that they could get nutrition, and then they would supplement other things, other meats and berries and fruits and other things on top of that, cheeses. But the like bread was it.
Yeah, it was the foundation.
It was the foundation, and so what that meant to them was it was the difference between living and dying over the winter.
Of course, yeah.
And this first harvest was an indication of the productivity of the farm. And how it had been during the growing season, which then indicated how was your summer, fall, and winter going to be. Yeah,
this is like by seeing what happens here, it's kind of okay, wow, okay, this is looking good, and that meant that if you were doing that right, you're probably doing the stuff that's going to come in your second and your third harvest, and your family would survive the winter to the next first harvest, right? So it's really super important. And so I mentioned the term Lammas, and I think it's actually from Lammas. And again, it's Christianity taking on syncretizing their feasts and festivals or important doctrinal things with local customs that were already there. The idea of the first loaves of bread coming from that year's harvest would be blessed, and that's supposed to they're just blessing the loaves, etc. But the pagan tradition that they are supplanting is one where they're celebrating the fertility of the land, and they're trying to maintain that fertility through the rest of the season.
Yeah, I love the way you say syncretize. It's like, you just use your knife and like put a cross on the top of the loaf and then bring it to church. Boom! Now it's Christian.
Exactly. You said that just as I took a sip, and I was hoping not to spray my laptop.
Keep doing your bread stuff. It's fine. Yeah, just bring it into the church.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So. Let's talk a little bit about those pagan traditions that might have been in place at that time. Do you want to?
Yeah. So the god Lu, just so our listeners know, Lugh is how it's spelled. And then also sometimes Lammas or first harvest is called Lunasa.
Lunasa.
And that's spelled Lughnasad, and that's going again because this is like that Western,
it's like Lose Day or something.
Yeah, European stuff. But he's the Celtic god of craftsmanship, which includes a lot of things like blacksmithing and wheel making.
Yes. Important, super important.
Right? Like, how else are you going to get your carts of grain if you don't have those wheels? And so one of the things I thought was really interesting is people weren't really sure about, from when I was doing my research, why it's being celebrated this time of year. There's some belief that maybe he had a wedding at this, that the god had a wedding at this time of year, which would make sense with like harvest wise, like that now is the time to have the wedding, or like he hosted a harvest celebration in honor of his foster mother, like
that sounds,
but they're just like, nobody was really like, this is why it is. Everyone was like, well, I guess it could be this, and we'll come back to it a little bit, but I also have an idea of why I think it might be. But
okay, good. So yeah, so the thing, so that's kind of and recognizing that we're just talking about Celtic tradition, so Welsh, so if you went further east in Europe, the traditions are going to be definitely different gods, et cetera, et cetera. So we're kind of in the States, we've kind of inherited this kind of Celtic wheel of the year, but there are other ways of thinking about this as well. So so some, obviously the symbols are of the harvest. Sides, the grain itself, early apples, okay, and people actually, I think that so it's the first harvest and the first feast. So people actually had feasts. It's kind of like, it's almost like, I think of it like a barn raising celebration, where it's like you brought the harvest in and then you're thanking the people who helped you get your harvest in. And so there's a big party. And I'm not sure exactly what people were fed, but they had, they had a number of different traditions. Yeah.
I imagine whatever it was that they were harvesting.
Yeah.
They just
That's right. Okay.
Chowed down on it.
Let's make some bread real fast.
And then make some bread, right?
And probably they had some grain left over that they fermented from last year. So that's another way of making merry. So yeah.
I also read that people would do crafts as a way of honoring Lou, since he was a skilled craftsman. So spending extra time with their wheel making or blacksmithing or whatever it was.
Okay, gotcha.
That craftsmanship.
Yeah.
Craftspersonship.
Okay, gotcha. Excellent. Yeah, so it's one of those. I think it's more a celebration of the time, and to me, it seems like the spiritual aspect of it is more a Thanksgiving for, thank God we've got food, or thank Lou we got food.
Lou, we got food.
Yeah, so whereas with a number of other celebrations, you often have like specific divine beings that are associated with it. This seems like a little bit more of a looser connection, but I think you're going to be drawing some other connections.
I am.
Okay.
I am.
But I'd like to talk a little bit about how we think about this.
Yeah.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. So for me, full transparency, Imbolc and Lammas are my two least jazzed sections of the Wheel of the Year. I honor them. I enjoy marking the passing of time, and they're just not really where my energy is. Until recently, until we went to Spain on the Camino, and now I'm like really into it. So yeah. So this is like the first cross quarter that is leaning into the dark time of the year. So summer solstice, we hit summer solstice, and then we start.
The days get shorter.
The nights get longer, and so for me, it's a time to take stock of what's happened in the winter, spring, and summer.
Ooh, okay.
So it's like a time of looking backwards, but then also it's really the time when I'm like, I look forwards and I see the dark time coming.
Right.
So that's what it is for me, really. Do you want to share?
Yeah, sure.
About yours?
So it's so funny because with our group, this was the first time that I really thought about the feast. The years that I've been in our group, because even as a solid, when I was kind of practicing on my own, it was never a thing. However, for me, Kimberlyn, as a child of my parents and just who I was growing up, it was a magical time for me because it was summer. And summer for me was just the one time, because I was a pretty driven child. As looking back, I never thought of myself as that way, but I said, God, I must have had like a stick up my ass. But that was the time when I could just be. I allowed myself to just be. And I mean, I might have gone to the library or played with friends, but that was a time where I wasn't trying to do something. I wasn't, thinking about schoolwork or what do I have to do. I could just sit and I could play. This was back before, I guess, there was crime, or I don't know, or our parents didn't care if there was crime. Yeah. That was back when they threw you out of the house first thing in the morning. You came in at lunchtime and had your peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and vegetable soup. And alphabet soup. And then they threw you back outside and you could stay. And the only caveat is that you had to be home when the street lights came on. So we, there would be groups of us, people that you actually probably couldn't stand that much, but you're playing, right? So you made teams, you did things. We went down, I remember going down to the park and bringing back frogs and stuff like that. So it was the time of the year where it was warm. I didn't have any responsibilities. In my imagination, the sun was always golden. I was never hot I was probably hot and sweaty, but the image that I always carry is biting into a peach and the juice from the peach just dripping down and me not caring about, oh my God, I've got a drip on my chin or whatever, just like biting into the peach and just letting the peach juice just like pour all over the place. And so it was a time of being and just resting. For me, it was a moment, like it was like these encapsulated moments of beauty and peace and rest and me just being me. And so when I started doing ritual with our group, I wanted to try to bring that into our rituals. And so it's not necessarily a spiritual imperative for me. It's more, well, it is a spiritual imperative because it's just us being divine beings, right? But it's really this, okay, this is an opportunity to kind of take stock, if you want to do that, to just sit back and say, like you say, what kind of stuff has happened in the past, and kind of, congratulate the first harvest of myself is, the work that I've done. And so let's sit back, and maybe I don't have a Compostela or a certificate or whatever, but I've done stuff, right? And this is an opportunity for me to just sit and just kind of bask in, what I've gotten to at this point. So it's less about the traditional. I mean, it is kind of, right? Because it's that harvest. So it has some elements of the traditional way of looking at it, but I like to think of it as really just an opportunity for me to explore and expand on the divinity that exists in myself. That it was like this moment of truth that I had as a child, and I can keep. I don't know, I'm babbling on this, but do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I'd love to affirm what you shared, because I think there's something ludicrous about
ludicrous.
Oh. They called the rapper Luda, like, for short, and so it's like really close. Lou. That's hilarious. Yeah. There is something, I think, ludicrous about this idea that, like, this is I'm air quoting, as modern, like, neo-paganism, we celebrate these holidays because this is the way that it was. Well, and it was that way because they were harvesting their grain because they might die.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I am not going to die if I don't harvest my grain. I don't harvest grain.
I was going to say, harvesting grain for me is going to HEB and getting a loaf of bread.
Yes, right? Yeah. We survived a pandemic, or a lot of us did. The world is arranged differently. And because of that, I think I like looking back and understanding the loaves and what it meant. And I think there's really some real enrichment and truth and wisdom in looking at how it applies to our life now, which is you playing outside unsupervised, and eating those peaches and that freedom that comes from that. And to me, when I heard you talking, I could hear the echoes of that in the farmers' children seeing the food that's being brought in, and feeling the weight lifted off of their parents' shoulders, and the adults eating that feast and pulling the bread out of the oven for the first time. That's I can see those connections.
Yeah. I never thought of it that way, but there are times. It's summer, right? So everyone's going to experience that different, particularly here in South Texas. But the speech. But there are certain elements that I think if one wants to, one can connect to the season. To connect to the conventional or the traditional season or the traditional celebration of that season, and maybe not, but that's why we have a circle, and that's why we have that's why we leave the circle, and we can do whatever we want, which can be our own personal expressions of that, right?
Yeah, and that's why we have so many priestesses in our circle, I think, too, because then it's not just one person's view of the year. It's, we're always switching up who does what, and I learn from the other priestesses the way that they see things, and I'm better for it. For sure,
and just different approaches, and while we have kind of this loose framework of the Celtic year, I really love how we individualize it when we bring our rituals to the circle, and encourage other people to know this information, because it's great ways of being the foundation for whatever you do, but recognizing that it's all about you and your spirituality, right? So I would encourage people to kind of think about what does it mean to them, and bring that to the party.
I love that.
Yeah. So you were saying about like the first cross quarter that leans into the dark, and I think we've talked about like the dark time of the year as we talked about Samhain and Yule, but this idea of this sun, this deity that's associated with the sun.
Yes, the sun.
Is as we're moving into the dark time of the year, I think it's just kind of, I don't know, just it's ironic and amusing, and I want to come back to Lou.
Yeah.
But I'm going to let you kind of go a little bit more, because I think you were going to be talking.
Yeah. Since our trip, we did some research, and we did a lot of research. One of the things we did some research on was the god Lu, particularly because Lugo is one of the cities that we went to, and Lugo is named after the god Lu. And in the way that you use the word syncretized, these different religions were spreading around, and the different myths and the gods, and then they kind of absorbed into each other, and then multiplied from each other, and then they migrated with people, and then other things came in on top and were syncretized, like you said. So things are, very flowy and definitely evolving. So because the god Lu was so central, or is so central to these beliefs, he's the sun, he's light. Like that's kind of a big deal, right? So
I mean, if you're a farmer, you kind of need him.
Yeah. So he had a lot of different names depending on the language and the culture and the religion, like everything from Lu, Lugh, Lugus, Lugus, Lugos, Lugos, Luga, like just lots of different iterations. And there's also I want to say that. So like sun and light. So he was connected to the summer, and of course to thriving agriculture, because like you said, the sun. Yeah. Right.
Not going to get those seeds out of the ground without him.
Yeah. So I also found that he is related to, the god Mercury, not like in mythologically, like he was his cousin, but like evolutionarily, like related to the god Mercury, like the god Mercury, like they're linked in the way that their
associations.
Yeah, their associations and merging and evolving through different cultures. And Mercury is a psychopomp, which means he guides souls to the underworld.
Oh, okay.
So whenever we were researching and digging around with that, I was thinking about the Wheel of the Year and how we're moving. This is the first cross quarter as we move from summer into the dark time of the year. We move from light into darkness, life into death. And so then I thought it was really fitting then, if I really think about the god Lu and Mercury and them moving people from life into death.
Wow. Yeah.
And that I can jam out on. To go back to when we started this episode, right? When we started this episode, and I said I really wasn't really super, it's important because it is.
Yeah.
And like now that if we had this experience in Lugo, I'm like, Yeah.
So here's the thing, and this is, and I put in our outline Lugo, because Lugo.
Yeah.
But it was one of those cities, it has like all of these different layers, because there's the pre-Roman, there's the Roman, then there's the Christian, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I loved is kind of the ways and the layers. But I kept looking for, this, I kept looking for the pagan, pagan, relatively prehistoric, signs throughout the city, and went to a lot of archaeological sites and museums and things like that, and I just found how the fascinating thing about this town Lugo. So first of all, just to reiterate for people, the Celts made it down to Spain, and they settled in and spread throughout Galicia. And so Lugo is one of those towns that's named after Lu, right? So, and it was Latinized. I think, I don't know how the Celts pronounced it, but the Romans then called it Lugo, I think. And so we have signs. There were, I think I mentioned this might be mentioned in our last episode, this fountain where you had, it was a Roman fountain, but it was built on top of a spring that had been dedicated to a local deity, and a naiad. I guess I'm trying to remember which dryads are trees, right? Naiads are water. So I think it's a naiad. Anyway, and then it had two Egyptian gods. It was Isis and Amun, and they had heads for them. They had like little heads where the water comes through their mouths, and then they had one for this unnamed goddess, but it was the spirit of the spring that they built their fountain on top of. So the water from this spring that had been dedicated to this local deity then came through this fountain that had been built by the Romans. So that is the part that just so excites me about Lugo, because we have all of these hints of pre-Roman practices, and then the Romans in their way built over it, but in some cases also celebrated those practices or tied them into there, so that they basically like took the power of that spring and tied it into the power of that fountain that was dedicated to totally separate gods. And one might talk about appropriation as whatever. I'm not, they're Romans, okay? They're not really concerned about, like how you're feeling about this, but they're building on, and they're acknowledging the power of this spring, and trying to tap into it themselves.
I love that.
And that's one of the things that I kept, in Lugo, I kept coming up against, not coming up against, but kept finding all of these wonderful signs of these practices that could be reflecting Lugo. They were also, like, for some reason, because it's a landlocked city, but they had a god who was an ocean god. Kind of, I think it was kind of like a Poseidon, but I forget what their name was for it. And show him coming out of the ocean, like draped in octopuses. Oh, and Lugo was like octopus. I mean, if you want to get like different ways of eating octopus, Lugo was your town, because they had like streets upon streets of pulperias where you can get octopus 9 ways, or 8 ways, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seeing that octopus on the plate with all of the suction cups. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet that was a yummy moment for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a treat it was to be in Lugo, and to it was like this city within a city, because you have Lugo proper, and then there's this Roman walled city in the middle of it, and just walking up on that, and then seeing. Man, my house was built in 1983, and it's doing a great job, but it is not doing as well as
that wall.
Yeah,
that's one. So I think that there's only 2 intact Roman walls. I think Lugo is one, and York in England is there might be more, but I know of those 2 where you can walk on the wall. I mean, and it's I don't know, 8 feet. It was 8 to 10 feet.
Yeah, it was thick.
It's huge, and like so they could put their battalions or their whatever's on there. But it's, like you said, we're lucky if our
right,
if our plumbing and whatnot, it doesn't spring a leak after a couple of years. And this wall has been standing for 2,000 years?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and when I was up there was a woman in her sports bra, and she's running laps up there.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just standing there thinking, like, what has this wall seen? Mm-hmm. And now there's a woman running on top of it, you know.
You didn't do a handstand there?
No.
Okay.
I was just trying to make it.
Oh, that's right. Lugo, you were...
Yeah, Lugo was a rough day.
Yeah, Lugo. I think it was the next day that was your...
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, after Lugo. But anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you were just keeping it together.
I was
Lugo.
just trying to... Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I said all of that to say that this is an example of how, the power of this belief in this belief system, and how we can see a little hint of how it's traveled from, Wales, England, Britannia, or whatever, down through the continent, down to Spain, and probably changing and adapting as it's moved, but bringing some essence of that.
And and I see us as a part of that chain moving forward into time. And now, there's these two witches in Texas celebrating first harvest,
That's right.
and what a gift it is to look backwards into time and to see those connections to those loaves of bread, and to look at my present and then to look into the future and wonder how that will be.
Yes, exactly. Our poem today, it's by a poet that we've discussed a number of times.
Her name's Mary Oliver. Oh, yeah, we've read some of her work before. But I love this poem for its ties into really encapsulating how I feel summer and how summer inspires me to feel about my life in general.
Okay, I love that. Okay. And it's called The Summer Day.
Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper. I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes.
Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day.
Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon?
Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Thank you for spending part of your wild and precious life here with us as we talk about our journey on the Wheel of the Year through Lammas. We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our Witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!